Hello. In this video, I'll be demonstrating how to create a virtual private cloud for deploying our project and also demonstrate how to create an Amazon managing streaming Kafka service as well as an EC2 instance within the same VPC network. So let's get started. First, click on the VPC service, which will take us to the VPC console. And within this page, we click on the Launch VPC Wizard and we select the VPC with single private subnet. And we just give our VPC a name. In this case, I will just call it CS441 project. And we let the public subnets the IDR as it is, and we select an availability zone, and we can create the VPC. So here we have our VPC created, and if you go to our VPCs list, we can see that we have our VPC created right here. So once we have our VPC created, we need to create an additional subnet within the VPC, and this is required because the MSK cluster uses multiple brokers, and we would deploy each broker on its own subnet. And we first go to the subnet tab within the VPC console, and we see that we already have a subnet by default created for the VPC that we just created. And over here we click on create subnet, and we select the VPC that we just created. And we give the subnet a name, and we make sure that we select an availability zone as well. And for the CIDR, we enter CIDR, which is different from the default subnet which is already present. So in this case, I'm going to enter this particular CIDR, and then we just go ahead and create the subnet. So as you can see, we now have two different subnets for this particular VPC that we just created. So now that we have our VPC and our subnets configured, we now need to create an EC2 instance within this particular VPC. So we go into the EC2 console within AWS. And within the EC2 console, we click on Launch Instances. And over here, we select the Amazon Linux instance. And we're going to go with the T3 micro instance. And within the network tab, we make sure that we select the VPC that we just created, and also make sure that the subnet that we create, we select one of the subnets that we created as of now. And we also need to make sure the auto assign public IP is also enabled, so that we can easily able to SSH into this EC2 instance. And we can leave the rest of the configuration as it is, and then click on review and launch. And now we have our EC2 instance created. So if you go back to the EC2 dashboard, you can see that we have the EC2 instance initializing right now. Now that our EC2 instance has been created within the VPC, we still need to configure the security access for this particular EC2 within our VPC network. So we first select the EC2 instance and then click on Security tab, and over here we have a security group. And we currently copy this particular security group, and then we go on to the VPC console. And within the VPC console, we click on the security groups tab. And over here, we first select the security group of our VPC, which is this particular instance over here. And within this particular tab, we click on inbound rules, and then we click on edit inbound rules. And over here we add a new rule which allows all traffic coming in from that particular EC2 instance security group. And then we click on save rules. Now that we have our security group configured with the VPC, any request coming in from the EC2 instance into this VPC will be allowed. Now that we have our EC2 and our VPC set up successfully, we now need to create the MSK cluster within this VPC, and for this I'm going to be using the same EC2 instance to run the IAC code to run the MSK cluster. So I'm now going to SSH into the VPC instance, and I've already created a clusterinfo.json file, and if you inspect this particular JSON file, you can see the configuration that we are going to be using to create our MSK cluster. And if we inspect this particular JSON file, you can see that we have fields to accept the client subnets as well as the security group of our VPC. So for the client subnets, I'm just going to copy paste the subnet IDs from the AWS console into this particular configuration file. So which in this case are these two subnets. So once we have the subnets entered into the configuration, we still need to add the security group of this VPC into this configuration as well. So that we click on security groups tab, and then we copy the security group ID for the VPC that we want, which is this one right here. And we add that into our security group section of the IAC configuration. And once we have the subnet and the security group configured, we save this file, and then we can go ahead and run this particular configuration to create our MSK cluster. And to run this particular file, we need to run this particular AWS command. As you can see, we got a successful confirmation that the cluster is currently being created with this particular name, and the state is creating, and the cluster we are in is currently this particular string. And if you go back to our AWS console and check the MSK service, we should see that the new cluster should be currently creating. So this is the current cluster that we just executed, and it is in creating mode. So now that we have our MSK cluster set up, we're now going to go ahead and create a topic called logs within this particular MSK cluster. So for that, within our EC2 instance, I'm going to I've already installed the required Kafka libraries into this EC2 instance, and now navigating into the Kafka folder, I'm going to run the create topic command. Here we can see that we're creating the topic called logs, and we have a replication factor of 2 because we've created 2 brokers. We're going to copy the zookeeper string of our MSK cluster and add it over here. And to get the zookeeper string, we're going to navigate into the Kafka cluster and click on view client information, and we have a zookeeper string over here, which I'm going to copy right now and paste into the command. And once I have the string entered, I'm going to hit enter, and now we get the confirmation that a topic called logs has been created. So now that we have a topic created within the Kafka cluster, we're now going to test the production consumption of messages into this Kafka cluster. So within our EC2 instance, I'm first going to copy the trust.jks file into a temporary location. And once that is done, I'll be running the producer and the consumer commands to test the consumption and production of messages. So over here I have the producer command, which already has the required bootstrap string copied from the AWS console. And within another SSH terminal, I'll be running the consumer. As you can see, the producer and consumer strings are currently running, and if I type a message within the producer, you can see that that particular message comes out in the consumer terminal. So this is how to set up the MSK cluster along with an EC2 instance within the AWS console. And from here, we're going to be deploying the rest of the services that we've developed into this particular EC2 instance, and then communicate with Kafka and Spark via this particular VPC. So that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.